Hi everybody, today I'm going to talk a little bit about decomposing a coaching session, and I do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I always really got a lot out of my coaching programs, and I really firmly believe that it is the best professional development activity you can invest in. But by the same token, there were times during my coaching programs where I was pretty frustrated, and I knew there was a formula to what was going on, but I was frustrated because I didn't understand the formula, and that was kind of distracting to my learning. So today's session, I'm just going to decompose a little bit of the coaching session with the intent of helping you either get more fulfillment out of your existing coaching sessions or actually give you a sense of what you're getting into when you sign up for a coaching session. So I mentioned that I really believe that it is one of the most effective professional development activities you can invest in. And that's because you have an advocate, a partner in a private context, in a confidential context, where you can basically vet on a regular basis all the activities and challenges and private ideas you have around facing your work. And that in and of itself is extremely powerful. But what can also be even more powerful, I think, is if you come prepared and buy into the formula for effective coaching. So I'm going to put up here, just for reference points, my chevron arrow that explains the different components of a coaching program. And these are customizable and they're different depending on the organization or the specific coach, but in general, the themes are similar. So the first part is super easy. The first part and the first several sessions will feel very familiar to somebody. It's much like setting any kind of goals, and it's actually reflecting the goals that you have for the period of time. So for instance, if you have a 6, 9, or 12-month coaching program, you'd want to lay out, here are all the important things I need to accomplish this year. And it gets infused with performance information from historic performances, maybe some assessments that you've done around strengths you want to apply more, and also stakeholder interviews at times to sort of say what leadership attributes are really natural and easy and wonderful, and where are their development areas. So the first several sessions is all around getting the what are we going to work on during this coaching program. But remembering that these are your actual goals. These are not sort of side goals for your coaching program. These are your actual goals. So how does coaching help you actually do your regular work? And so that's what I'm going to go through today. So when you start a coaching program, after you sort of establish the goals, you'll show up at your first session, and generally the very first thing that happens, it's like, okay, what do you want to work on today? So each coaching session, immediately the coach will start asking you to bring forth what you want to work on today. And I have a couple of tips that I would suggest to you that I think you might find helpful. So number one is, it needs to be something in real time as much as possible. So the power of coaching is that you actually work on things that are really, really present in your mind. So you have all the details. It's either a team meeting that went really poorly yesterday that you want to not reproduce next week, a meeting or presentation that's coming up on Friday that you're quite nervous about, something that is very, very present for you. That's part of your overall goals, but that's very, very present. And the reason for that is because we're going to dig into the details. We're going to dig into the interpretation of all the things that surround that and all the things that are blocking you or creating that tension for you associated with this particular activity. And if it's not in real time and it's not very present in your mind, it'll be difficult for you to answer all the different types of questions. So why all the questions? So let me explain that one of the first overarching themes behind a coaching session is this notion of insight or awareness. So the very first thing that generally we're trying to do after we've sort of said, okay, I want to work on this, is to really understand new awarenesses that we could extract from this experience. So when you describe, for instance, last week's team meeting that didn't go very well, and I begin to probe, can you tell me specifically what happened, and can you tell me what reaction and what you said? Those questions are not really to understand the storyline. More powerfully than the storyline are listening for what are the habits, what are the beliefs, what are the subconscious activities that are leading to that outcome. So when we're asking all those questions, we're trying to find sort of what's the lesson in this? What are the things that when we decompose it a little bit more, we understand where the individual contributed, what they have influence on, what they have control on, and what insights we can draw from that experience. And in a really good coaching session, we get there. We get to something that's like, wow, at the root of this, and something honestly that's new to the individual. what at the root of this, I didn't realize this was going on, or this dynamic got in the way, etc. And at that point of the coaching session, it's actually the low point. It's actually the part where you're like, oh, where the individual sort of feels that, oh man, I should have handled this differently. And following that, it's really, the next theme is around empowerment. So then it's like, okay, fine. So we acknowledge that. That's great. We know that. And when we know things, we can work on them. So then it's around, well, what would it mean for us to change this? And how great would it be if we accomplished that? And what are the things that we can control? So it's all around figuring out what's the empowerment and motivation around making a shift for this particular insight or awareness that we just determined. And the next step is actually the even more powerful, which is around, and what skills and capabilities do I already bring? It's all around what we call resourcefulness. So what are all the things that we can do to actually make this change, right? And so that's a lot of thinking about historic experiences or other parts of your life or other examples and other teams where you have potentially knocked this out of the park and it hasn't been difficult. So then what are the pieces from those experiences that apply very acutely to this one? And the final step is around determining action. So a lot of the power in coaching is that then we try to bring the future into the present. Now that we have this insight and we're motivated to change it, and we know the resources we have access to, both within ourselves and in our broader network, what are we going to do this week to start down that path? And we identify actions that we're specifically going to work on, and it begins the cycle again in terms of the loop. So that is a little bit of the behind the scenes, and certainly every session you want to get value out of every session, and over a program you want to link together all of these powerful coaching sessions to really accelerate your results. And this has been proven to work extremely well. So I hope this tip is helpful for you, and I'd love to hear your comments. What are the most challenging parts for you when you're in a coaching session? Remember, tips to get the most out of your coaching. Bring absolutely your real goals to the table. Come every session with a very specific experience that you want to dissect or work on. Be prepared to be asked a lot of questions. Again, being patient, remembering we're looking for insights. It's like trying to force wisdom. You can't. You have to weed into the process to discover those insights. Then we're going to maximize our empowerment and our motivation to make changes, identify the resources that will support us in that change, and then we're going to plan our actions for the week and see each other again. All right, take care.